prepare is one of my favorite all-time meals. If you've ever been in the South, guess what? And you had. Today we're going to fix one of my favorite meals of all times, chicken fried steak. If you've ever lived in the South and you hadn't had chicken fried steak, you're missing everything. Up north, it's not a very popular dish. Basically, chicken fried steak is some type of meat that has been beat up a little bit, seasoned and salted. Today we're going to use deer meat. If you're lucky enough to have it, it's one of the greatest meats to make chicken fried steak with. The other meats that you can use, you can come back and you do a round steak, a sirloin. You go in the restaurants, they'll make a big, real thin with a heavy breading on top, or you can use most anything as long as you get it beat out a little bit, but those are my favorites. Now the first thing we're going to do, we're going to come back in. You can see that this was a deer roast and I've cut it into little thin pieces about that thick. We have them laid out on the table. So what we're going to do, we're going to come over, here's one that's a little too thick, and you can make little medallions or whatever out of them. So what we're going to do, we're going to come over here. You see how thin they're starting to get? Now I'm going to do this whole board of these, so we'll be back in just a minute. Now it's about 3 to 5 minutes later. As you can see, we've come back in and we've beat them out. I call it a little Tommy Hawk or knocker on the thing, but you can see that it's come back in, it's actually tenderized, it's flattened the meat out. So we've got that prepared. Now the next most important thing are the spices. And again, spices are a matter of what you like and what you don't like. We have listed over here some of the different ingredients that you can use. Of course, you're going to use salt and pepper. I'd always like to have a little garlic salt on it, a little accent, and one of my favorite is Slap Your Mama. It's kind of a Cajun type seasoning. It's a little spicy, but it's not too spicy. It does add that extra little kick that you want. Some of the other products that you could use, which we're not using today, your Seasonal, which is a very excellent product on it. Even, you know, if you're going to use salt and pepper and a little garlic, your lemon pepper gives it a nice taste. And one of my favorite all-time products is your Cavenders. Those are the different spices that we got. So let's get back over here. First, what we're going to do, we're just going to, all over the board, a little bit of salt, just spread it around a little bit. If you notice down here on the end, all these little bitty pieces, you won't get that when you come back in and you use a round steak or a sirloin or whatever, but when I'm cooking, there's always somebody around that loves to eat the little medallions, like my son. He's always got his fingers in the food. So we got a little bit of salt on it. Now we're going to come back in, put a little bit of pepper on it. Now it might look like we have a lot of spices on it, but when we put it in the milk, a lot of them are going to come off in the milk. So that's the reason for a little bit more there. Always like a little garlic salt or on the thing, so we're just going to spread that around. And again, it looks like a lot of stuff on it, but the milk is going to kind of wash it off. And then, like I say, my favorite, Slap Your Mama. That gives it the punch. Now, what I like to do is just kind of press it in a little bit. I think y'all got the idea. We're going to finish this up in just a minute here, and we'll do the other sides, and we'll get back to show you how to finish it up in just a second. All right, now we've come back, flipped them over. I'm going to pat the spices back into the meat a little bit here. They kind of incorporate in the meat, and you can see it's well seasoned. We use the spices we like, you use the spices you like. Everybody has a different taste. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to let this sit and rest for just a little bit on the board. Then if you look over here, We have milk. You can use milk, buttermilk, are the two most good products. And what that's going to do is going to kind of soak into the meat, and it's going to help when we do our breading to stick. So that's where we're at right now. I'll transfer that over. We'll put it in the ice box, and then when you're ready to do it, I'll show you how to make the breading.
Okay, so this will sit and just kind of soak in those spices for maybe say 20-30 minutes, and then
not quite that long, anywhere 5 to 15. You can do it up to 30 minutes.
Okay.
You know.
And then you'll put them in the milk, and then they'll go in the refrigerator for say 6-8 hours.
It could be as little as an hour to 6 hours, to 8 hours.
All right, see you then.
All right, here we're coming back in and doing our chicken fried steak. You know, like we came before, we were talking about the different meats that you can use. We did use the deer meat. We left it in 6 to 8 hours. Now it's dinner time, busy day. You come back in and it's going to be fun. So what we're going to do, we're going to take this. I have a little bit of flour there that's already been seasoned a little bit. We don't need a lot of seasoning because we've already done it. We're just going to come back in, coat it over. Now, I like putting on this pan right here. If you remember back in high school or elementary school that we came back in, and remember your old chemistry class where they taught you how to make glue? Basically flour and water. So what we're doing, we're going to let that sit there a while, and the reason we kind of want a little bit of glue on it is to make it stick. If you threw it in the skillet now, basically the coating is going to fall off. So I'm going to come back in and do all of these, and we'll be back in a few. Right, we've come back in and coated all of the deer steak. We've let it sit for a little while. Now what we're going to do, we have a little egg wash, one of the traditional ways of breading stuff. 2 eggs. Might have to put another egg in, and I just always start with 2. It's always easier. Come back, dip the steak in the egg wash, dip it back into a little flour. Just a tad more seasoning, not a lot. So what we're going to do, we're going to come right back here. We're going to take one of these, dip it there, and you can see it's nice coated where it's dripping. Now we stick it over there, get it very well coated. We're going to put that one there. Let's get another big one here to show you again. Back into the egg wash. You can see it's nice and dripping. Put it back in there, flip it over. You want to get it well coated, and we'll be back in a few minutes after we get all these coated. Alright, we came back in, we've coated all this stuff. We sat around and talked a little bit. It's about 15-20 minutes later. We're not in any big hurry to get anything done. As you can notice, we've come back in, we've done the second double dipping of this. We've got it all double dippled, and we're going to test the skillet. I put this in. Basically, if you come over here and look, we need to get the temperature right.
Okay.
If you'll come in and start looking a little bit closer, I'm going to put a couple little test strips in.
All right. So what's in the pan right now?
In the pan, that's a little bit of Crisco. I like it a little better when it comes to your game, type products. It's just a matter of preference. And when I was growing up in 8, 9, 10, we used to go to Arkansas. At that time, it was in the 50s, and that's what they used. And to me, it just gave kind of a little better taste. So we're gonna come back in and let's get this up a little bit higher. All we're trying to do is come back in and get the temperature right. I have just a little bit of Crisco on the bottom. Probably for this, I'm gonna probably have to add a couple more tablespoons. So let me get the temperature up right. About a minute later, you can see now we're starting to get a little bit of brown on the thing. It's smoking a little bit. These are the little tidbits. All right, now let's start doing some real cooking. We're going to fill the pan up. We don't want to crowd it too much. You got to watch this real close because we don't want to overburn it. We don't want to overcook it. You can see about 1.5 of deer meat's going to feed a lot of people. When it comes to the chicken fried steak, we're going to get that nice crust on the thing.
So what does this go for in a restaurant if you're going to sit down and have, say, like a round steak?
A round steak, chicken fried steak in Texas, they'll charge you anywhere from $6.95 to $9.95, depending upon where you go.
And this is pretty much standard fare at any down-home establishment.
All through, you know, the South Texas where they make it. And you can see we got a nice little sizzle on the stuff. I'm making sure that we've got them kind of off to the side. Now we're going to cook these, and we'll go ahead and show you all the cooking on this thing. And I don't want the pound too crowded. What a lot of people will do, they'll come back in, bread this stuff, or already buy it from a supplier where it's already breaded, and they'll throw it in a deep fryer. To me, that's yucko. And now we've come back in. You can see a few places probably didn't do it quite right, the breading, but you can see it's starting to get a little brown. You got to pay a real close attention to the cooking stuff on this. This was my aunts used to come there, and they would fuss, you did it wrong, and they'd say, no, I didn't, and they'd argue back and forth. But you can see I want to get a little brownness to it.
So really you just want this to be a bit brown. So maybe see this piece right here might be just a little overdone, but
it's fine.
It'll come out just fine.
You can see we're starting to get a little brownness to it because we thin these things out so thin. It doesn't take long to cook them, 4 minutes or whatever. You can have them a little burnt, and that's not bad. Even though it looks like it's burnt, when I put some gravy on that, it'll be stupid. So let me finish this little pan up, and we'll do another little pan. We probably got about 2 more little pans to do, which total cooking time 20 minutes. But this would come back and feed 6 to 8 people.
So the temperature here is about at a 6.
Yeah, about 6, someplace in there. One of the things real tough about this is getting the fire right. I don't like gas. I mean, electric stoves. I like gas stoves because I can control the temperature a little bit better. But you work with what you got, and there's nothing wrong with either of them. I just find cooking with gas is a little easier than with electric. Now, as far as I'm concerned, the temperature is pretty good. We got enough Crisco in it, and we're going to stir them a little bit, and we'll come back and flip them. You can see some of them get a little burned, some.
Ooh, that's nice.
And you can see right there that it's starting to look real good, and then we've got the temperature right. One of the things when you're cooking, temperature changes, oil changes, and that type of stuff. Don't worry about it, even if it's a little darker than what you think. Just as long as you don't burn it or whatever.
So I think the key to this recipe is that it's, we're making a venison steak tonight for a chicken fried steak recipe, but really a lot of folks complain about venison having a strong game flavor. This, especially in the flour and with the egg mixture, really doesn't have that deer and game flavor at all.
And the reason for that is because we left it in the milk, which, like I said, we didn't have the buttermilk. I prefer the buttermilk. You look over here, we've got one little kind of plate of them. We're putting another one, and we've got the last batch in. I always like to put the bigger pieces in here. If you were doing a big chicken fried steak like they do in Texas, probably that chicken fried steak would cover up this whole pan. The only thing I don't like about what they do, they come back and they throw it in a fryer or whatever. I like to come back and serve it. And so these are, to me, are a little funner. You can eat what you want. It doesn't have your normal restaurant in Texas. They put too much batter on the thing. This has kind of a light, crispy type batter. To me, it's a little more healthy, and you get in a lot of the places because they'll come back, it's pre-cooked or whatever. it's too much batter. This is more meat. So we'll come back in and let's see. You can see right now the fire is a little low. Let's get it back up a little bit. That's one of the problems when you're cooking this much meat at one time. Look at there. You can kind of see the crust on that one there. You see how we're over here. No, that's not as good. I can tell you that's not as good. This one should be a little, there you go. That's the type of crust you're looking on it. This one over here, yeah, no, that's not quite, but don't worry about it. You can flip it 2 or 3 times. Alright, now I'm finishing up the last batch, and you know, it takes a little while to get the temperature, but I'm really pleased with this one. If you look back, you can see the nice little brownness. The crust is pretty much staying on. Some of it will fall off because it's cooking, but the majority of it is. And this is, to me, as good as it gets. So we're going to finish this up, then we're going to come back and make it. With about 3 tablespoons of the grease that's come back in, cooked all the chicken fried steak in. You can see it's not quite enough, so I just come back and take a little olive oil or whatever, kind of make a little roux with it. We want to come back in and if you ever made a roux, you don't want it too crispy. Now look over here. You can see now, to me it's a little hot, and all we're doing is coming back with the flour, and we're just going to sear it a little bit. Now what you're going to get off this, it's got all the chicken fried steak on it. Let's just turn it down there. Just let it cook. We got to cook the flour taste out. Now I'm going to come back. I always start with 4 cups of any type of liquid going, and I use what I need.
So this is a beef base here.
Beef base.
1 tablespoon of beef base with 4 cups of water is what you're adding to it at present.
For every tablespoon of flour, I got a tablespoon of grease. Okay. The normal rule is for every tablespoon of flour and tablespoon of some type of.
Right, but what you just added to it, that was a beef base, which was 1 tablespoon of beef base plus 4 cups of water.
I added enough to see how we're going to come back and look at it. We've come back in just a few seconds there. I'm stirring this up, and you see the nice, dark, rich color on it. This one, because I used a beef broth on it, is going to be a type of brown gravy. Myself, I prefer the brown gravy. You go to the Texas restaurants, they like the white gravy. All I would do to come back and change that from a brown gravy to a white gravy, I would use milk. We're going to kind of let this get to a boil. To add just a little bit of spice, Old Bay is just as good as any. It's pretty much got all of the seasoning you need in it, because when we came back and cooked the chicken fried steak, you can see it's starting to thicken up a little bit. Now I'm going to start turning this up, and I'm going to add just about that much and we're going to turn it up high. In earlier sessions, I've always come back and said you always add a cold to a hot. The hot, of course, was in the pan. The cold was in the liquid, the beef base that we're putting in. And you will never know exactly how thick it is until it comes to a boil. We've been cooking this, and as you can see, to me, it's not as thick as it should be. It's almost a watery gravy. You see how it's just pouring off there? So what you do, you get you about a tablespoon and a half of flour, mix it with a little hot water, stir it up real good. And what we're going to do, we're going to add this into the gravy. We're going to add about that much. And you can already see, look here, how it's starting to thicken up. And we might add a little bit too much to it. If we did, we can correct it by adding a little bit more of our beef stock. Here, let's finish.
How much flour would you recommend?
We put about a tablespoon and a half in the thing. with just a little bit of water, and if it's too thick, you add just a little bit of more of your beef stock. But now look at the difference. You can see how it's not running off, it's starting to drip. So I think we've got it about perfect for what we're looking at. We'll just turn this down right here, let it cook, because we added new flour to it. Flour, until you cook it down, will kind of have a bitter taste.